Over the next several weeks together, we're going to be asking Jesus' questions, but we're going to be asking those questions interiorly and also amongst ourselves. This week, Jesus gave us this particular question: what are you looking for? And wow, this is a huge question. Do you know? Because Jesus didn't ask, what do you want or what do you need? And those are both important questions to ask, but that's not where he went. He asked, what are you looking for? And contextually, I would love for you to know this. This is all coming from John chapter 1. It's the very beginning of John's gospel, and it's amongst the first words that we hear directly from Jesus. Some people were following John the Baptizer, but they were curious about this Jesus. So they started walking behind Jesus, but not like surreptitiously, at least not to Jesus. He knew that they were there and he had a question for them. What are you looking for? And that is the question for today. Can you imagine just seeing Jesus on the road and finally getting the chance to walk after him? And I say finally, but chances are you've been trying to do this for quite some time now in your life. I know I have. That's true for me anyway. But what would you say to Jesus if you had a chance to meet him face to face? I think about this a lot, actually. And I'll confess that I might suffer from the problem of the cult of celebrity. I'm a New Yorker. I'm trained to ignore and to be aloof. If I run into my idol, which happens sometimes, my biggest idols are actually stand-up comics, and I see them sometimes, and God forbid I meet this guy, Josh Johnson, who's a preacher. Anyway, I digress. But if I were to meet any of these idols, in fact, I met Jon Stewart right out front, and anyway, but what would I do? I'd say, "What's up?" Like this, with the chin, my version anyway. But could this be the curse of the New Yorker, where we're not just too cool for school, but too cool for Jesus? If you met Jesus, would you give him the head nod? What's up? Because if you're not ready, you might do just that. And here's what I'll say. Our text from John gives us a different model, because Jesus' followers, green as they were, didn't need to have the right words or questions or gestures, because unlike a celebrity, this is Jesus. Can you imagine a celebrity asking you anything beyond some version of, get away, which is not a question, I know, but that's part of the point. Anyway, they didn't need to ask. The people didn't need to ask, because Jesus was ready with one of the biggest questions of them all. What are you looking for anyway? And if you've heard me preach before, especially in the last few weeks, you know that I keep warning us about asking God the wrong questions. But in this early text from Jesus' earliest ministry, I actually find it refreshing that he starts everything off with a moment of connection. He asks the question, and in so doing, the chin nods, the too cool for school, the all of it just melts away as Jesus gets to the heart of things. What are you looking for? What do you want from God? What's your list? And before you think I'm shaming you for having a list, I want you to know I'm not. Jesus was full of admonishment actually in his ministry, but he didn't offer an admonishment here as he asked the question, which makes me feel like he was earnest in his questioning. He really wanted to know. What do you want from Jesus? What do you want? Is there a difference between the two? We started the series acknowledging that we can't assume our questions to be stumbling blocks to our faith journeys, because we are spending the next several weeks grounded not only in our own questions, but actually in the ones that Jesus asked. What are you looking for? How many of you have constructed a vision board? I have once. It was in probably the worst time of my life, a time that broke my heart and made me a shell of the person I am today. Moments after a very deep trauma, I was leading actually an offsite retreat as a pastor, not at this church, but down the road. And we made our vision boards while I'm in this really tough spot. And the vision board that I created that day was as aspirational as you can imagine. I went to all these stores ahead of time and begged them for spare magazines that I knew they were going to throw out, and they didn't actually gift them to me. I had to pay for them, but never mind, I was determined in my ministry. So anyway, we all got together and made these vision boards. And mine was as big as can be, pretty much the opposite of where I was, right? I was so sad and upset. But my vision board was lush and green and abundant. It had my life partner on it, the one I hadn't met yet, and my offspring, who of course had not yet been born, and my beautiful home that I of course didn't live in. And these were a bunch of things that I could list out. And as I look back on that list, I can't even begin to share how grateful I am that I actually was able to live out that vision board. And I thank Clavon Williams for helping me to get there as he was helping to lead that workshop. And so I come back to Jesus's question, what are you looking for? And back then I knew this and I achieved it, by the way. I got everything I had asked for, but then what? Is life about a series of goals? And if it is, are we aspiring to the right ones? That, I think, is where Jesus' question is leading us today. And here's what I believe. Whatever our imaginations can summon, that's amazing. But God can summon more. What you are looking for and what God wants for you may be and often are the same. But whatever you're hoping, I promise it is a fraction of what God sees for you. Jesus had a question for his followers that he's asking of you today. Imagine Jesus walked into the sanctuary and locked eyes on you right now and asked you this, what do you seek? With faithful intention, are you ready to be astonished and undone by God's grace?